last week on the Al Nicoletti Show. Without further ado, let's welcome him to the show. Jordan Fleming, there's my guy, Jordan.
It is usually labor that makes growth a challenge because systems and processes assume that labor can catch the ball and run with it every time. But that's not true when you're dealing with a pure human workforce. And so what we used to have to do is we used to have to scale by hiring. Now we have to get into a mindset that recognizes there are going to be roles for systems to do work, to take responsibility. There are going to be roles for people to do work and take responsibility. And the melding of the two is where the real future of AI and business is going.
What have you seen the best teams out there do so that their team can be successful?
Training them properly. And training them properly is not about training a script. But if you train people on scripts, you box them in to a methodology that they cannot waver from because they don't have the core skills to be able to do that.
What else are you seeing out there that can really help level up a real estate team?
There's a reason that business fundamentals work. The most successful operators I've ever worked with do the fundamentals right. And when you're talking about sales, you're talking about training your team, like we just talked about, reinforcing your team. And then what's the third big one that everybody who's successful gets really right and the people who aren't successful get wrong? The follow-up consistency. When I see operators who really thrive, they have a very, very solid methodology for follow-up that is applied universally and rigorously. And the people who don't are missing the gold that's sitting there that they're ignoring because they want to see when the next lead comes in.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me, Al. It was an absolute pleasure.
Welcome back, everybody, to another Wednesday night in the studio. If you missed any of that episode last week, you got to go back and check it out. There is always so much information in these videos that you can learn so much and take away from it and implement it in your business. So if you missed any of that episode, go back, check it out. And of course, if you want to find us on all of the social platforms, scan the QR code at the top of the screen. That's where you're going to get everything from our YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook. Content is everywhere. And if you want to learn more about probates, partitions, and the hot world of curative title, you got to check us out there. And we got another amazing guest for you tonight, Chris Johnsen, my guy. He's an attorney out in Texas, and I love everything that he's doing out there. And we're going to dive in on his episode today. And, you know, for me, I never really bring an attorney on. And when I bring a lawyer on, there must be something going on. And so I got my guy, Chris Johnsen, coming on today. So I'm super excited. As we always tell people, drop comments, ask questions, and take notes. I got my pen, I got my paper, and we're always making sure we're getting the most value out of these episodes. So I'm ready to go. We're ready to rock this thing. So let's rock this thing. Hey, everybody. My name is Al Nicoletti. I'm an attorney here in Florida, and welcome to the Al Nicoletti Show, where I bring on real estate super investors, rising rock stars, movers and shakers, and leaders of clubs in their communities that educate, entertain, and inspire all things on Florida real estate and bring in the best in the game. Look, we bring on people in all these industries. It doesn't matter what state, doesn't matter whether they're at in real estate adjacent, diving deep in wholesaling, fix and flip, land. We want to bring the best in the biz to you on how you can take your company to the next level. On my show today, we got my guy, Chris Johnsen, the attorney out of Texas. I love Chris. I met Chris at Family Mastermind. And when I met Chris, it's one of those things where lawyer sees lawyer, and we all of a sudden start jiving and really talking. And we all of a sudden realize we're 2 hours into a conversation going, wait. We need to go outside and go talk more. And every time I see Chris, he is very knowledgeable. He gets it. He's really deep in his niche. And I just love the value and the education he brings to this side of this industry. So without further ado, let's welcome Chris Johnsen to the show. Chris, there he is.
What's up, Al? Thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it, man.
Hey, Chris, I love to have you on here. And like I said in the intro, you know, I rarely ever bring an attorney on the podcast. And if I'm bringing an attorney on, you know it's got to be a good one, because it's somebody that I know really gets it, is very knowledgeable, gets the game, sees this happening in real estate all over the place. So I'm happy to have you on, and so you can pour into the whole community Chris, we got to start with this. We got to know what are some of the hottest topics going on in the law field right now when it comes to either LLCs or doing things in investing. Keep it, we could start on the beginning level and we can work our way in, but we got to know what everybody needs to be aware of right now and pay attention to.
Well, so, you gave brief background, and I am a business real estate attorney. I have a business firm that's mainly business focused, and I have an estate planning and probate firm and a title company. So I'm deep in real estate, and you just asked the question about real estate, which is wanting to give a little bit of that extra background. So what am I seeing? More of the same. I think I'll tell you the new thing in a second, but the same is the probate curative. I mean, one of the reasons I started my estate planning and probate firm is because the number one thing I saw with real estate deals and them being messed up is people just didn't have an estate plan, or they had a will and it needed to be probated. But and I don't know if this is much of a problem in Florida, but I got to tell you, like, I make it my life mission to tell everyone, and realtors too. It's amazing how many don't realize this. You have to probate your will. Like, it
Mhm.
doesn't probate itself. So
Mhm.
even though you have a will, you still have to probate it. Huge number one issue. Wholesaling, I think, and this gets very state specific around the country. So I'll just focus on Texas. It wasn't that recent, but a fair amount of wholesalers don't realize that there is full disclosure. Like, you can't keep any of it blind anymore. You have to disclose to all the parties that there's going to be an assignment in the deal, of course, unless you double close the transaction or something like that. Here's the new thing I'm seeing in real estate, and I will um, kind of new, kind of not. So, and you're going to know what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
It's AI, of course, which we want to talk about all the time. And we just talked about kind of DIY, and I'll call it the proliferation of content. So, forms have always been available. Let's not, let's not lie to ourselves. So, a real estate investor for decades, and doing DIY is not new in the real estate investor world either. That's pretty prolific. But it had forms. Okay, great. They always had Google. Okay, great. Now you can create contracts pretty easily out of whole cloth. And it's very deceptive in some cases because you put in the prompts. Of course, it's going to create this amazing thing that's supposed to do the deal the way you think it is, but it's understanding the mechanics of the deals, and then to put in the proper prompts, and then once you get the output, then tweaking it, massaging it there, which requires a deep understanding of the mechanics of the deal as well. Long story short, I'm seeing people f things up big time, and the way they're structuring things is wrong.
Mhm.
Okay. um, or they're running afoul of other things that don't get flagged, like maybe securities laws and the way that they raise money for a real estate deal. Um, or here's another thing I see too: the boundaries. Like, part of being a lawyer is kind of knowing where to fall in the middle to get things done, but also advocate for your client. And I see that it's way easier to cross that line and not know that you're being really aggressive with a position or super weak with a position, because you just don't know.
Yeah, interesting topics you brought up. Like, especially with AI, how many people I've even heard, Chris, that are using AI to create their own trusts and LLCs and to create documents. And people tell me that. I'm like, wait, what? Like, what why go through that process of taking a chance in the AI messing something up, or not contemplating a scenario, or having that extra critical thinking? Like, there's this theory of, I'd rather cut out the attorney work, and then now you got a potential issue coming up. You must be hearing that all the time.
But here's the problem too. So let's pretend I'm a surgeon, okay? And I need to do surgery on my mom, and I have to hire like this expensive surgeon. It's a $30,000. So, and this is the customer. The customer says, "Oh, well, AI can do it." So now I can hit some prompts, and it can come up with a scalpel Now I just got to use the scalpel. That's easy, right? The problem is you don't know what you don't know, right? And so you think you don't know what kind of output it is. And I'll tell you, just from even basic documents, like you said, I still work on forms because every time you push that button, it's giving a different variation. I don't want to deal with variations. Actually, it's more streamlined for me to use forms for certain things, like let's say an estate plan. God, why would you want a different kind of version of a will every time? I want to
Mhm.
see the ultimate product. And when you go to an attorney, they've been vetting that form over and over and over again for years and years to a polished, perfect product, not spitting out some thing. Um, I don't know. There's going to be a lot of litigation over it. Probably will, as there's more DIY stuff. But if you don't know what you're looking at, how do you know how good the output is? And I just think that's the biggest thing. And I keep talking all day. I can give you some examples because I've thought of talking about this recently. But
Go
do you want
for
me
it.
to talk about a
Yeah.
business deal? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Let's hear it.
Okay. So I could tell the guy was doing some DIY, but he's got a small business. He's going to sell his business to someone else. The other person, the buyer, uses AI to do an asset purchase agreement and an earnout provision. Okay. The client's, I guess, okay with this earnout. For the listeners, an earnout's kind of like a promise to make a payment in the future based on hitting certain metrics. So it's a way to hedge your bets when you're a buyer. You're like, I'm only going to pay maybe half the purchase price and I'll pay the other half if the business does well.
Mhm.
So the seller sees this complicated earnout provision and I think tries to kind of work through it and then is like, holy crap, I'm going to go get an attorney. So of course, then the thing is, well, I just need an attorney to like bless it over, right? But then I have to go through a 30, 40 page document, read it, understand it, understand where it's good and where it's bad and massage through it. For me, it's almost like from the very beginning. So it's not like it saved him any money. So he still have to spend money on that. Where it costs him more money is I go through this hyper complicated earnout provision. I make my changes. That's what I was pretty much hired to do, make my comments. And I get the comment back. I just don't want to get screwed over on the earnout. And I was like, well, let's take like 10 steps back. Because if you had told me that and you worked with me from the beginning, the only way not to get screwed on an earnout is don't have an earnout. That could have been negotiated in the very beginning. So what I got him was less of an earnout, more purchase price up front, and then we soften the earnout provisions. I tell you this story because if came to me from the beginning, if a lawyer structured it for a small deal, simple is
Mhm.
better. It's too easy now to make things complicated. So the parties using AI and they don't know how complicated or simple an earnout is. They're pumping out this content provisions. And what does complication end up in? The more language there is, the more complication there is, the more likely it's going to be that there's a dispute later. And the whole point of these contracts is to avoid disputes. So it came to me when it was effed up. That's the whole point. Had to do with what I could, and that's the kind of thing that I'm seeing. And this people crossing that line where it's just getting too much. It's too
Yeah.
complicated. I don't need a 3-page email for every single thing. I'm not going to look at it. If a client sends me a 2-page email, I just respond in one sentence and say, let's set up a call and walk through this. It's
Yeah.
unfair to them. They don't realize they don't want to pay for that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And also not only that too, I feel like there's a lot of context that gets missed in just an email like that too.
Oh,
Like
sure.
there's like so many different things. I really believe in that too. It's like if we got to just set up the call, get it done. But you're right, Chris. Like we've seen so many situations where we're actually picking up the pieces because the file was a mess because it wasn't done right. And, then all of a sudden everybody goes, well, how much is it going to cost to, what's it going to be like to fix this? And then we tell them, and it's like, well, why is it going to be? Well, we're only here because of the mess that we're in,
Right.
And so it kind of bleeds into the importance of why you need to get an attorney up front from the beginning of a file instead of jumping in, even though most lawyers would say we get paid more if we're having to fix the problem. But
No, we do.
it's more important to get up front with these issues instead of waiting till the end. And document prep is more important than ever. Like, Chris, I really believe we're going to see more issues even with the wills and trusts that are going to be that are online. Because what happens is companies put out this stuff, but they also don't include the proper execution requirements. They didn't include the proper distribution clauses.
Right.
And family's going to go, well, wait, I did a will. I thought, so we're going to see a lot more of that. And going to your point of your firm even getting into the curative stuff with Texas, because we love the curative stuff in Florida. Like, you're in Florida, we love the curative probates and all that stuff. You're in Texas and doing it there. Hot topic wise, what are you seeing going on in that niche?
Most of the time, and I know this isn't sexy, but most of the time it's because they didn't have a will, or they had a will and it never got probated. So, man, I don't want to go into this too much, but essentially, and your listeners probably know this, you probably appreciate me covering some of this, but essentially you have you can pass things through probate, or you can pass things through contract. Okay. Contract would be your IRAs, your life insurance, bank accounts, and a trust is a contract. That's a good way to avoid probate and get out of it. The will kind of captures everything else, or exists when there's really no contracts to sweep it through. With the probate, these people get a will. Like, okay, I needed a will, but they don't do any probate. And because of that, you can do some curative things like an affidavit of heirship we have in Texas. It's not the best thing, but we can do it. But it doesn't grant the wishes of the decedent. The decedent might want the money to go somewhere else, and I'm dealing with that exact situation right now on a curative file. But that's where 90% of things probably are because of, we need to do somehow get this interest that was never passed, probated, or otherwise passed over somewhere else to do a closing.
Yeah. And I know Florida and Texas are different in their respects for that. You can do the affidavit of heirs in Texas, and mainly you can avoid probate. And
you don't
Florida,
have that there?
Well, you have probate, and you have to do it here if somebody owned the property and died. There is an affidavit of heirs that's part of the probate, but it still doesn't avoid the probate. Like, you still have to go. Yeah.
Gosh, that sucks. That's good. Yeah, good for you guys. But yeah, that's a lot harder in Florida.
Well, it's actually not harder. Like,
Okay.
That's the thing that a lot of investors miss, is the fact that probate in Florida actually is really easy. It can be very streamlined and easy. But it's a matter of, you still got to get with us to be able to get it through. And we make the streamlined process easy. And it's just basically getting everything together, filing it in court, getting it back, laying the record, and that's it, right? I've even heard investors in Texas, when they've gotten an affidavit of heirs, they all of a sudden run into 56 heirs or 68 heirs, and it ends up being
we have to hire a genealogist to trace all the heirs.
Wow. Do you find that you run into a lot of that stuff?
No, but we do. And then it's the problem that you face. Of course, it's like, okay, this genealogist charges like a lawyer, and we're probably going to spend, at least $3,000 to $5,000 on this genealogist to do the legwork to match together all these heirs, so we can file it with the court and get some kind of determination of heirship. Yeah, it's expensive. And then it's like, I don't know what to do at that point. It's been 100 years in the making, probably, some of these messes.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, the curative work, I mean, it's definitely like taken off. I think what a lot of people have realized is families need a lot of help. right? There's a lot of families that run into situations where they all can't agree, they can't find stuff, they don't know where their other family members are, and it really requires going through the diligent process of how do we fix this? We don't want to lose the house, we don't want it to go to auction, we don't want it to go to that point, but if we got to be able to work through how we can solve these problems together, and this is what
Yeah.
um, Chris, you get into a lot of LLCs and
All the time.
so a lot of people will also want to do an LLC, and sometimes they want to do it like as just themselves, single member. And then you have people that want to do multiple members. And then you have the other group of people that go, "No, I don't want to do a LLC. I want to do a land trust." Give us
Mm.
the full scope of what you see in the LLC market right now.
What I see, um, we don't have a land trust statute in Texas, by the way. But the mechanics of the land trust are exactly the same as they are in Florida. Essentially, it's just a revocable LLC, or sometimes called a living trust, and it owns the property. And because it owns the property, then you don't have to disclose the true owner, right? The
Mhm.
beneficiary. That's all it is. But it provides zero asset protection. The LLC structures provide, well, I don't know, in Florida it might, but in Texas it doesn't. Revocable trust, definitely not. Um, the LLCs provide a level of asset protection. Um, what I s- don't see enough of, which I should see more of in Texas, I'm going to speak, which I personally have, is a series LLC. So in Texas, we have a statute authorizing the use of a series LLC. And you see this with funds. Funds, you like fund one, fund two, series, different series, and it has gone into real estate and it's specifically authorized for real estate. You form one series LLC, you got to specially form it. And it's like the mothership. And then there's an operating agreement in there. And then you can create different separate series underneath it, each of them contractually created, not by filing with the Secretary of State. And they each have asset protection. Each of the contractual series are treated as a separate entity, and have asset protection. Why is that important? It's called a special purpose vehicle, like an SPV, or a special purpose entity. One piece of real estate, one entity, one and one, one and one. You could create a new entity every time, and you can have a single member, you can have multiple member. If you have a couple different members, you can go along. I like the series LLC because you can whip up a separate series and you can have different permutations of membership. You can have a single member, you can have multiple members all through the line, and provide a level of asset protection. There's still more layers of asset protection that should be provided beyond that. But fundamentally, I think the Series LLC is the best tool for real estate investors that have multiple properties. And then you can do building blocks from there. You can have like a holding company in a different state that's, anonymous ownership. So you can kind of keep the top level more anonymous. You can add in asset protection layers, but the basic goal is one entity, one property.
Interesting. Do you guys have homestead over in Texas?
Yeah, and it's unlimited, just like Florida. So Texas and Florida both have unlimited homestead. Some states your homestead only goes up to, a couple hundred grand, protected from creditors.
And it doesn't. So in Florida, they have different acreage requirements. So it depends
We
on if you.
do. We do. If you're in a city or if you're in the
Yeah.
country, it's the same kind of thing. Florida and Texas. Remember, you remember probably. I got licensed in Florida first. I don't practice as much there, but I'm from Florida originally, so I know a little bit of Florida stuff still.
Yeah. It's always interesting when I hear people talk about some of the overlaps with Texas and Florida. And I'm not licensed in Texas. So a lot of people go, "Hey, Al,
It's
like
the same.
where do people go for Texas?" And I'm like, Chris. And so it's really interesting hearing a lot of these different scenarios going on. Chris, you're not just a lawyer, you're a businessman, and you
Yeah.
run the law firm that you own too. So
Right.
what what is that like in terms of challenges and operation standpoint and some of the things that you're always working through as a business owner mindset? Like, because it's one thing for us to practice law, it's
Yeah.
another thing to also manage different things going on.
So I'm a business person first. Before I ever went to law school, I had started and sold a business, small business, and it owned real estate. I was involved in commercial real estate in the retail sector. When I went through big law, I had the like, job that paid super well and all that kind of stuff. And when I started my own firms and my own businesses again, once I left big law, I didn't want to create a job. I wanted to create a business. So from the very, very beginning, I always was focused on structure and process, like the building blocks of building what this business is going to be. I've always gone like, tech first, process first, human third, like just to fill in the gap. Grow really lean, which is part of my value proposition to attracting other attorneys, that it's more money in their pocket, more and less bills for the client, cheaper bills. As the owners of these businesses, and I studied traction. There was a period of time, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, I was reading all the books, and I almost like, I haven't even read any books anymore in the last year. But if there was a period I was reading 100 books a year, and the biggest thing, and clockwork was a really good one too. I've never really, I haven't taken all these, like any one book and apply it. I just took little pieces for myself. But what I do is I build departments essentially, or direct reports, right? Because I may not be big enough to have like a full-time mid management, but I should just be touching the business, which I pretty much do all the businesses once a week for a half hour per department. That's it. And I tell everyone in that department, like, they can reach out to me on things, but for the most part, you save it for our weekly meeting. That way, I'm only focused on like marketing with my fractional CMO, one half hour, a half hour block every week. That's it. That's all I touch. And then I kind of, get my directions, maybe create videos, do whatever after that. So I'm touching the departments, which empowers those people. It says, like, I'm not going to sit here and micromanage you and babysit you. I'm going to be the CEO of the company, and I'm just going to check in and make sure things are moving. I keep track of my deliverables that I need to address with that department once a week. And I also have a list of the top 6 things that me as an owner needs to do to advance my business interests. And those are the things. For 2 hours a week, I have a meeting with myself on the calendar, one at the beginning of the week, one at the end of the week. And all I do is work on those 6 things. And for your listeners, and to answer your question, none of those 6 things are work on this case, work on this transaction. None of it. Like, that's work. That's a given. That's like way off to the side.
Well,
This is moving the
Chris,
business forward.
what are the 6 things? We got to hear what these 6 things, 6 principles are of Chris
Well,
Johnsen.
they're not principles. They change. So these are my 6. So I have it in my Apple Notes list. I
This
have
is great.
my 6 things. So for me, and there's 3 different businesses, so there's going to be a little overlap. So number 1 is recruiting attorneys with books of business. That's like a major thing, and I have tactics to do that, but my eye is constantly on the ball. I've got a whole system for getting them on my calendar, this and that.
To keep
And
growing the law firm, right? To keep adding
yeah,
them into here. Yeah.
yeah, that's one of my things. And then mixed in with that is I'm rebranding the firm slowly into a more national brand called, well, I don't want to say it yet, but I'm branding it out into this more national brand. And so I'm slowly working on that, where replacing all the collateral and the videos and all that's going to be a big process. So there's tactics within that I have to fulfill for that goal. That's one. Want me to keep going?
Wow. Yeah, no, this is interesting to hear because like I feel like you're just mapping out your vision plan, right? Or like
Yeah.
what you're trying to accomplish, right? Like instead of saying do this work, do this, like this task for today, like this is
Mhm.
more like higher level thinking of what we need to focus on big picture wise.
That's it. And then that feeds down. And then that's 2 hours I have with myself. I look at the 6 things. There's like 6 blocks. And I'm like, that's where the focus needs to be. I need to focus on that to push it forward. So, like, one thing, here's another one. I'll just another example. Those both Johnson Law things, by the way. So there are things for the other company.
Sure.
Agentic development. That's one. So in all the companies, agentic development. I can't just, and I talked about this. I'm not going to sit there and do Claude code and all that. Like, I know it exists. I'm not an AI dummy, but I'm a business owner. I don't have to become a master at every one of my tools. That's what hiring people's for. So I have very competent consultants that are in there at a reasonable fee helping build my agentic AI. They can't read minds. So what they need from me is which SOPs do I want to automate, and then testing it out and explaining the business so they're not completely in the dark. That is the highest and best use of my time. Another thing is, and this is more for Johnson Law, but I have a podcast. You do yours much. You do yours much better than mine. Mine is I'm just using StreamYard. I'm just posting on LinkedIn. I'm just going on YouTube. I bring in-house attorneys who are some of my ideal clients, my avatars. So that's one way that I connect with people for sales and new relationships. That's a high level use of my time. So all these 6 things, I'm thinking about like the big picture vision strategy, and they all have little tactics. And if I don't focus on those obsessively, 2 hours a week, that's it. 2 hours a week. One on Monday, one on Friday, then I'm not going to move the ball in my companies. I'm just going to be sitting there and doing work. That's what people do. They do work. Like, the CEO isn't there to just build clients and do work. Well, it's part of what I do. I need to be high ticket at least 2 hours a week.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're the face. Like, you got to be out there. You got to be finding ways to make yourself the most productive with your super genius, right? Like, you need to be able to stop being in the weeds and stop doing the micromanaging. You want to be like big picture. How do we keep growing and developing and making this easier? Because like you said, with the AI stuff, I mean, the more you grow, the more you have to implement it, because that's the only way it keeps things scaling and growing faster. There's no other way. So having those right there, and like you said, it's not really principles, but it's more like the vision and the focal points that you should focus on. Every business entrepreneur should have something like that mapped out, written down in front of you on the computer that you can actually see and take home from it. So,
and I give credit to Charles Schwab, by the way. So I didn't invent that. So, and that came through Bob Proctor material. And I think he talks about Charles Schwab, but that's what he did. He went, he had his 6 things. What are the 6 main things that I need to advance the company?
Incredible. Well, Chris, this is definitely awesome stuff. I know you had one big point that you've made before too, and talking about financial moves people should stop making immediately. Do you want to talk about that? Like, what's that one financial move people should stop making?
Should stop making? What do you mean Oh God, I've got so many. I'm like a Karen when it comes to this. Any financial move people should stop making.
Yeah, like what's the one?
Here's the number
the
one. Here's the number one. And when I was 18, I read what was it, Rat Race or whatever, Kiyosaki book with the rat, wherever that one was. It did frame my mind from when I was 18. So I would say stop spending money on depreciable assets. I mean, you can't completely stop, right? So take that statement within reason, but put your value on appreciable assets. So real estate, crypto, investments, things like that. Look, your home, is good. That provides happiness too. You can also invest in yourself, doing self-development, things like that. That's an appreciable asset, yourself. But Stop the fake life stuff. That doesn't matter if you have $100,000 car that you can put on Instagram or whatever. That is going to depreciate in value. It's long term. It fails the marshmallow test. You're taking one
Mhm.
marshmallow now in lieu of two later. Think about spending money only on appreciable assets.
Love it. Yeah, people should focus on that. Things that are gonna actually rise in money and make
Yeah.
interest and focus on that. That's awesome, Chris. Well, Chris, you always bring so much knowledge and value to this. I got to know, like, what's been your favorite book that you've read recently? I know you haven't looked at some stuff recently, like in the last year, but like, what's that one book that's coming to mind that you're like, this is a go-to book for entrepreneurs out there?
Gosh, there's so many. Um, yeah, it's funny. I've swung back to podcasts lately, which was my first love. But back to books. There's business books and there's self-help books, and the self-help are kind of spiritual books too. Um, I guess I just have to go self-help, and I'm gonna cheat because that's what I do. I'm a lawyer. So I'm gonna say Think and Grow Rich and its progeny, which includes dozens of books that share in the same philosophy that have kind of splintered off over time. Some of them very old and very interesting books. I love them. They're like my, positive affirmations.
Love that. I know there's a lot of people that go to those books as well. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Chris, you always bring it, and I love having you on the podcast. And then for anybody that's trying to check you out or find out more about your information, we've definitely put that on the bottom of the screen. Chris is an attorney out in Texas. So if you are in the Texas market, you're listening to this, reach out to Chris. If you got something in the curative title, the probate, the LLCs, the business structuring, mergers and acquisitions, right? You still getting into that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Reach out to Chris, get in contact with him. Always so knowledgeable as a lawyer out there. So, Chris, before we hop off, final words,
Yep.
final thoughts. Chris Johnsen.
Fine. Whatever. Thanks for having me, Al. It's always good to see you. You're the man, and the show, the way you've put this on, very very professional and very engaging. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Love it. Well, we'll be catching up soon. And again, reach out to Chris if you're in Texas and connect with him more. And Chris, we'll be seeing you soon, brother. Thanks so much
All
for coming
right, see you,
on.
bud. All right,
All right,
buddy.
man. Take care. All right, everybody, you heard it from Chris Johnsen. If you missed any of that episode, go back, check it out. Like I've told people, look, it's hard to find great attorneys in these other states. And Chris is one of those that I love bringing him on, love talking to him. He's out in Texas. So if you're in that Texas market and you downloaded this on iTunes and Spotify or YouTube, go check out his content, go check out the law firm. And if you want more content like tonight's episode, scan the QR code at the bottom of the screen. You're going to get everything on our link tree of where you can find us. And we got all those content and videos out there for everybody. And we will see you next Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you there, everybody. Take care.